Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Series, a month-long event celebrating the authors and narrators that bring romance stories to life. Listen along as Viviana, Enchantress of Books, interviews your favorite writers and voices, share special guest posts, and stay tuned for some special information at the conclusion of the episode.
Hi, everyone. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with guest author Meghan Quinn. Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Series, Meghan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
I'm excited to talk to you and get to know you better. Why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been writing, and how you got started?
So I actually started writing. Well, first of all, most important thing, I'm a mother of two young children. And wife, I have a wife. We live in Colorado Springs. And my favorite thing in the world is peanut butter. I literally just downed like a little packet of it before I got on here with you. And I first started writing when I was in 2012. And I actually wasn't planning to be an author. I was working in the sports business and doing like event planning and stuff like that in the sports field. And I was commuting an hour and 20 minutes to work one way. And I just started, it was before podcasts and before Spotify and, you know, all the cool stuff that keeps you busy now. And I would just listen to music and think about the books I was reading because I was like, there's nothing else to do. And so I started thinking about the books so much that I was like, oh, maybe I should write my own. And that's kind of where it all stemmed together. But I didn't self-publish until a year later because I would queried some agents and they were like, you're not for us. And I was like, okay. And then my mom was like, you should self-publish like that. You know, I've heard Amazon does it or whatever. And I was like, okay, you know, I'll check it out. And I actually accidentally published. I thought I was just saving a draft, but I hit publish. And the next day, you know, like you get to work and you're like, oh, I cannot function just yet. Let me just goof around for like the first 10 minutes.
Yep,
so I checked
that.
I checked my personal email and it was like, congratulations, you published your book. And I was like, excuse me? And it said, check your sales. And I was like, oh, don't mind if I do. And so I checked them out and it said that I sold 3 books. And I was like, what on earth? And like 3 books in a matter of like, I don't know, 12 hours. And I texted my mom immediately. He's like, oh, Mom, did you buy my book? She's like, what are you talking about? I didn't even know you published. And I was like, oh my God, 3 sales of people who don't even know me. So that's kind of how it all started. And then, you know, just kind of blossomed from there.
I love how you're like, Mom, did you buy my book 3 times? We always think, right, that it's our parents supporting us, but hey, sometimes it's complete utter strangers.
Yeah, it was.
Was that like the final draft that you were just saving it in case you were changing your mind about publishing it all? Or was it one of those that still had not been fully finalized?
It was the final draft, but when I was talking to my wife about it, we really wanted to make sure that I had like a Facebook page, a website, like everything ready, because I knew, at least at that time, like I have struggled. I have learned so many things along the way just from, you know, trial and error. But I knew as a reader that one of the things I enjoyed when I was reading authors' books is like, I like to go to their website and I like to check their Facebook page to see, you know, like what other books they had and stuff like that. So I was like, I need those. And so I was waiting until we finished that up. And then when I got home, I was like, oh my God, it's published. What are we doing? I have 3 sales. Oh my God, what's happening? And so then like we quickly like finished up my website and my Facebook page that night. We were in the dining room table in our like small town home, and Steph had her computer open and I had my computer open, and I was like, are we doing this? Is this what's happening? Steph's like, I think it is. Like, I think we have to go forward. And so then no one knew that I was writing a book besides my family and maybe like 2 friends. And so we announced it on our like personal Facebook pages and had people like my our personal profiles, and we had people or invited people to like my Facebook page. And I remember when we hit like 100 likes, I was like, oh my God, we are doing it. So, and they were all just like friends and family or whatever. But yeah, I think I know who one of my first purchases ever
Really
is. Yes, because she wrote me an email saying that like she read the book and it was like close to time frame of someone purchasing and reading.
Oh, wow.
And she said how much she liked it. And I have met her several times and in person, and she's so lovely. But yeah, I think it's kind of crazy how it all started. And it was sheer panic at the beginning because we were like, what's going on? And so I was like, what are you doing? Why did you publish? I was like, I didn't think I did. It's a total blonde moment. So
Well, I mean, I've been on the back end of Kindle and uploading files for authors and stuff. And it could be a bit like, are you seriously? Like, I already pressed the button. What do you mean it didn't save or whatever, So yeah, it could be a little bit frustrating, but it all went well, it seems, obviously. Now, how many books later?
I know, like over 50, I think. And I just did I had to do like some sales stuff, and it just did that I was like over 3.6 million units sold. And so I thought that was like a huge accomplishment compared to like just the 3 where I started out.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm sure that feeling of, oh my God, it's release day still happens even after 50 books.
Oh, every time I think it's going to be a flop. Even though I know that the book is good, I always have this like feeling in the back of my head that, I didn't do something right. Something's going to go wrong. Maybe I missed something in the book that wasn't, that I shouldn't have written or something like that. Like, I always fear that something is going to go wrong. And it isn't until probably 2 weeks later where I finally calm down and I'm good to go.
Wow. So 2 weeks after the release itself.
Yeah, that's how I can usually base off a release on how it's going is 2 weeks. If I can look at those 2 weeks and be like, if it matches up with the average book in the last like a year or so, then it's good. Because sometimes I'll have books that do like extremely better. Yeah. And then there's some books that I'm like, wow, that one sucked. And it just, it depends. So I usually take the average of, how well a book does, and I base it off of that. And because if I reach for the stars every single time, if I think that it's going to be like as great as a Not So Meet Cute, that's just setting myself up for failure. That's, it's just not how it works.
And it all depends. Yeah. And there's so many variables between, if the reader's mood, if they're a mood reader, if they have other things up in the queue first, and if they were not even aware for whatever reason that you had something else coming up. There's so many variables.
There's so many. And that also comes down to, a lot of stuff comes down to environmental too. So you're talking about who you're releasing with, but also what's going on in the world, that is very much like, I had so many new readers during the pandemic, and I don't know if it's because people were trying to escape from like what was going on. People had extra time, or what, but I gained a lot of new readership during the pandemic. And, that is kind of very much environmental and, what's happening in the world. So it really just depends on, there's so many different variables, and you can't repeat anything. You just have to hope that you did everything right and appreciate yourself for finishing a freaking book,
Well, I will say that you're doing rather well in the sense of the readers. Anytime a question is asked, whether it's about, hey, what's a good book to start off? I'm in a funny mood, or I want something this and that and everything. Your name pops up a lot. So it's always on positive stuff. So
that's good to hear. I always say, like, when I first started this journey, I would talk to my parents about it. My dad was an entrepreneur, and I kind of get like that drive from him. And I said, like, my goal for all of this is to make people laugh, to entertain them, and to help them escape from whatever situation they might be in, that they just need like a timeout, And that's probably the greatest gift, upon doing everything with this author business, is getting those messages from readers who are like, I'm in the hospital with my son, he has cancer or something like that. And I read your book and it just helped me through like this moment, or, I just lost my father and your book helped me connect. And there's so many messages that I get that are so heartfelt and so life-changing that I truly feel like I know that I'm in the right place, in the right time and doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
It's definitely the same similar stories that when we have that conversation with the readers and the listeners, is like, yeah, I wanted something funny. And I knew that automatically that means it's a Meghan book. I'm like, yep.
I'm also known as a palate cleanser.
Yeah. Yep.
I've been told several times.
Yes. When they've been into really dark romance too often lately, they're like, I need a palate cleanser. And people are like, Meghan. And I'm like, yep.
Yeah. I don't mind it. I should write that on like my branding, Meghan Quinn palette cleanser.
Hey, you have to own it, right? It's how you got to own it. I
should hand out like mints at signings and be like, here's your Meghan Quinn palette cleanser.
Absolutely.
I am not marketing on this good enough.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, you could totally I can see other types of swag too, even a mug, kind of a thing. You want to need a palette cleanser? Meghan Quinn's your girl.
Right, exactly. Oh, man.
Yeah, exactly. Need a mood lifter? Don't go for the pills. Grab a Meghan book.
Yeah. Skip the pills.
Yeah.
Go for Meghan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Aside from making people feel better and laugh, what is it about the genre that you write, which is primarily rom-com and contemporary romance, that you love about it so much?
I have been such a love freak for I don't know how long. I freaking love romance. I grew up watching musicals and romantic comedies. And to the point that like during high school, my friends would be like, Meghan, we're going out. And I was the goody two shoes. I was like, I know that you guys will have alcohol and that's not for me. So I would stay home and I would sit between my parents. Well, first of all, we would go to Blockbuster. My parents would let me pick out any movie I wanted. And we bring it home. I'd sit between my parents on a Friday night, and we have popcorn or, whatever, and sometimes ice cream. And I just watch those romantic comedies and I freaking love them. And they made me so happy. And I've just always loved the aspect of people meeting up, people finding a connection, that relationship building. And oh my God, I love a total disastrous breakup. It's my favorite thing in the world. I love the anxiety that goes with it, the heartache. It's just so wonderful. And then I love a breakup. And then when you get that happily ever after, at the end, there's just like a formula to it that makes me happy. And I honestly couldn't imagine doing anything else. And the love has been there for so long. So, I
mean, I remember those days going to Blockbuster and going up and down the aisles and being given that you pick a movie. Like, I get to pick a movie. Mm-hmm. I recently found a Blockbuster card in some of my stuff. I'm like, oh, someone kept it. Okay, Mom, thanks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, no, for sure. I actually read a really cute romance story on your website, which is how you met your wife. And I love that so much. Yeah. Your dedication to like, I'm going to get her to like me. So for those that may not know this, it's on her website. But Meghan, can you tell us that lovely romance that happened to you in real life?
Oh yeah. So I wasn't looking for love, like a lot of us. I actually had a full ride scholarship for softball, and I went to school in New York, and it was my summer going into my junior year. And it was the first summer that I decided to stay where I was going to school. And I was like, I'm going to get a job, because I didn't really have a job ever, because I just played softball. And my parents weren't happy about it. They wanted me home. But I was like, I need to like do something for myself. Like I need to be a big girl here. And so I got a job at Friendly's, which is an ice cream like restaurant with lots of ice cream. And I was so excited to start my first job. I was that girl. I was the bubbly blonde who walked in and was like, here we go. Like, I can't wait to learn how to scoop ice cream. Show me all the things. And so the manager brought me into the fountain area and he's like, all right, you're going to be training. And this is Stephanie. And Stephanie, she turns around and, oh, like the scowl on her face. She was not thrilled to be training me. And not because I was just this bubbly blonde and stuff, is more like dry sense of humor and just not the bubbly type at all. Like, we're complete opposites. But she was a server, and you make a lot more money as a server than in fountain. And so she just wasn't thrilled to be training me. And I'm like overly excited. I'm like, oh, wow, this is the ice cream. This is so exciting. And she just hated everything. And she was kind of like mean at one point, and she'll deny it to this day. She'll say this never happened. But her friend Jill, who's now our like obviously mutual friend, came up to her and she's like, hey, like, how's it going? And they were talking about some party they were going later that night. And she's like, what are you up to and stuff? And I'm like 6 feet away, something like that. And Steph's like, oh, I have to train this stupid girl today. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Like, I didn't do anything wrong. And so I'm that person who needs everyone to like her. Mm-hmm. So I decided in that moment that by the time I was done with this summer, she was going to like me. And I think I took it too far because now we're married. But it was a enemies to lovers, I'd say.
Yeah. I think that is so adorable. Like, it's one of those where, again, you said opposites, complete opposites. And just that little bit of a snark with when I read that, I was like, oh, she had a smirk. And then what she said with her friends, I'm like, damn, harsh, but I like it.
I know. She's a very tough one to please, but if you get her on your side, she's loyal to death. Like, and super protective. It's funny because I talked to Amy Dawes about, different things that Steph does. And Amy Dawes is like, oh my God, she's so alpha. Like, she says she has big dick energy. And then like I sit back and think about it and I'm like, she does.
Yeah.
She freaking does.
That's a good little there. Amy Dawes, it sounds exactly like her.
Yeah. I didn't realize it until I was telling her. And then she was like, oh, Meghan. And I was like, oh, I guess no.
Yeah. It's good to have those people in your life that are a little bit harder to please. So you work a little harder and you're there, you kind of have to have better expectations of yourself in order to just continue to improve on anything. But the loyalty is huge too. So that's really cool.
Loyalty is key in our lives.
Yeah. It's rare, unfortunately, to find it, whether it's friendships or relationships and stuff like that. So when you find a good one, you keep them. I'm glad that you went a little further than just friends from that matter.
Right. I know. And she tried to kick me away so many times. It's like, oh, I'm good. What's funny is that the way that I was able to like get her to actually, talk to me was I was friend of everybody at the Friendlies because, that's who I am. And I'm, walking back and forth through the kitchen, all that different stuff, talking to people. And the guys on the grill, as I'm walking by, they go, hey, Meghan, how about that game last night? Talking about the Yankees game. And I was like, oh yeah. And I like talked about Bernie Williams or, whatever. And like named some names, and Steph was like filling up water glasses, I think, behind me. And she turns around and she goes, you like the Yankees? And I was like, yeah, I love that. I'm like, it's, her life revolved around the Yankees for so long. And I was like, yeah, they're like, I grew up loving them. And so that's how we bonded, was she's like, oh, this girl, she's a Yankee. She knows names of players.
Yeah. It wasn't one of those moments where you're like, okay, how am I going to get their attention? I know that they like this because it's, we do that all the time. We try to impress the other person just to get the conversation flowing or whatever. But yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I read that. I'm like, oh, I hope she shares that with us because it's so cute. I love it when things like that happen. And, now fast forward, how many years has it been now that you guys have been together?
16,
Wow.
think.
Nice.
Yeah, 16.
Yeah. See, that's.
Yeah. So we'll celebrate the 10-year wedding anniversary on June 2nd. And we'll actually be we'll be in Paris at that point, because we're going to a signing in Scotland. And then
yes.
From there, my French publisher asked us to hop on over because they're going to do a pop-up signing. And so I was like, okay, I've always wanted to go. So I think we'll be in France at that point, but it'll be a good 10-year wedding anniversary.
I was going to say, yeah. Yeah. It's interesting going abroad. I've never been, but when I learned that you can take a train ride for like maybe 3 or 4 hours and you're completely in a different country. Whereas here in 3 hours, depending on where you're leaving Florida, you're still in state.
Yeah.
And you might have reached
halfway.
So. Yeah. So it's very interesting. I'm like, I much rather be able to get on a train and go to a different country and stuff like that. But yeah, you're going to be signing at, it's rare for Edinburgh, right?
Yes.
So a lot of people have bought those tickets and are really, again, name dropping. Yours is one that always comes up when it comes on to who they're excited about meeting and things like that. So
nice. I'm really excited. I haven't been overseas since 2019. And I did my first signing since COVID in February, and I showed up to the signing completely unprepared. I didn't have cash. I didn't have my card swiper. I had 2-year-old swag. I'm like, what on earth, Megan? Like, do you not remember how to do a signing? And I was so embarrassed because like I was going around, and this is just me personally, like no one cared. But I was going around to different tables. I was like, oh, everyone does such a nice job with their tables. And like mine looks just like trash. And so I made it my mission after that signing to really spice up my signing table and to make it more of a reader experience within my brand. And I worked really hard at, creating, I had like my friend draw up mock-ups of what my table would look like, like probably like way too intense for a signing table. But I love it. Love signing. I love signings. You get to meet the readers who read your books and know a lot about you, just because they read your book. And it's great to sit there and talk to them and tell them thank you and how much you appreciate them and take a picture. And I just love connecting with the readers. So the fact that I'm going to so many signings this year, and that things are, slightly better, I'm really excited to make that connection. Plus, the signing table looks amazing.
Cannot wait to see photos. I know that, again, going abroad is something that I have on my to-do list, but not this time around. But one of those days, talk about like, well, why do you need to go abroad? Well, there's going to be a book signing and, I need to be there for my authors and stuff like that. It's a very business-oriented proposition.
Very.
Nothing to do with anything else. I did see your list. You are busy this year with the book signings. I was looking, I'm like, the only thing that you weren't going to that I saw was like Allure, which is in September. And I'm like, oh man, she's not going to Allure.
I don't even know what Allure is.
Girl, it is a first time con, but it's specifically only for audiobooks.
Oh, see, I probably would have gone if I would have known.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I honestly, I feel like I signed up for almost everything that was like presented to me because I think it's the best way. Like, if someone can meet you, and if someone can see your personality and like that personality, then those people are going to go home and be like, oh my God, I met Meghan Quinn and we had a great conversation about boob squeezes or something. And it was so funny. You should read her books. And then maybe those 2 people pick up a book and then those 2 people like it. And then they tell people. Like, word of mouth is the best way. And I think one of the best way you can present yourself is by your personality, and not like a fake personality, but just who you are. So readers can get to know who they're supporting.
Mm-hmm. No, that is very true. There have been many times where I've been walking at a signing, and either you see someone that may not have a busy table or anybody out there, but they're on their phone instead of trying to, bring people in. And then there's others that, just, they see something that you're carrying and they're like, oh my God. And that's how they start the conversation to get your attention. Yep. And I have bought books from people authors that I have never heard of before because they were so nice. And we discovered that we have something in common, and oh my God. And I'm like, which one do you recommend for the first time to pop my cherry with you? And then they're like, oh, this one, and then there you go. And then they kind of, again, go back to following them on social media and this and that, because it was such a good experience, because it goes both ways. You guys are there to, yes, definitely get new readers and listeners, but we're also here to meet that person that wrote that story that we love so much and see how they are.
Yeah, exactly. I also like to get if it depends on the reader, because sometimes you'll meet someone who is maybe more shy, and that would probably be me. If I was meeting someone, I'd be super shy. But, and with those readers, I'll, ask them where they're from, or, what they're currently reading. I'll try to ask them a question to get them engaged. And sometimes it's like short answers, and sometimes I get them to open up a little bit. But then there's the readers who come in hot and they're like, hey, and they're like totally extroverted and so much fun. And those are usually the readers that I'll ask more intense questions to sometimes. Like, they'll be like, oh, I love this book. And I'd be like, what did you hate about it? So, and I like to learn from them, and I like to learn and see what people didn't like. If someone's like, oh, use the word moist, not in a sexual content, but they like use the word moist. I'm like, I know, I do it on purpose. I do it to bother you guys.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll take like things like that, and I'll just as a small joke towards the other readers, I'll stick it in books and see if they notice, that I'm not necessarily trolling, but maybe trolling a little bit. I think it's fun,
Yeah, but also it becomes something like, again, part of your brand that you're known for. And then it becomes almost like a little bit of a sub game in reading the book. Like, let's figure out what did she add to this book? And your diehard readers,
yes,
figure it out.
I have so many Easter eggs in my books. Like, I will include characters, mentions of stores, mentions of, every little thing I could possibly think of from different worlds. And I'll stick them, weave them all throughout all of my books. And even there's this one, oh gosh, now I can't remember what freaking book I wrote it in. But so the locker room, their breakup is 8 years. And sorry for anyone who, spoiler alert, sorry. But I do it through text messages.
Oh boy.
Their first text messages are pretty long, but as time goes on, you see the text messages get smaller and smaller and smaller until it's just like a simple happy birthday. And it's devastating. And it's one of my favorite things. But the complaints I got from it, people love the book, but they're 8 years, Megan, really? Did you have to do 8 years? And I think it's so freaking funny. I think it's so funny. So in one of my other books, I had a character who was talking about, some movie or something. And they're like, at least they didn't make the people wait 8 years for them to get back together or something like that, peer torture. I'll see things about my other books, in my current stuff. And I just think it's fun because then readers will send me screenshots, laughing and stuff. So it's just enjoyable for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a gig, it's a job, but you have to enjoy what you're doing. Otherwise it becomes mundane, and then your books become mundane. And then we know, well, what happened? What going on? And so it's good that you have this fun too. And I mean, your reader group is awesome too. They all talking about your books. You'll pop in and give us some of these goodies, and inserts, and it's a fun time. So yeah, those readers are awesome.
And they're good in there. We try to keep it as, I'm so worried about Facebook being, excuse me, being taking down my group because there's something naughty in there. So I try to keep things, PG as possible. But sometimes, because we have approved posts, sometimes someone will try to slip something in there, and I want to message them and be like, this is hilarious and I love it, but I'm afraid Facebook will take me down.
Yeah. But the fact that you take the time to even do that is still a connection with the reader and the fan, and that you're letting them know that you actually enjoy the shit out of this thing, but we gotta keep it, because if we want to keep our playground, we got to keep it clean, right?
Yeah,
but that
exactly.
that conversation right there, I can guarantee you they were not mad at all. They were like, no worries. Yeah, it's those little things that when the authors and even the narrators interact with the fans and the listeners and the readers, it's just like they get so tickled. I mean, I've gotten DMs from friends that are, I'm like, oh my God, so and so followed me. Oh my God, so and so like my post. Oh my God, they said that the review was great. I'm like, yeah, yeah, awesome. I'm not jaded or anything like that, because I still love everything, and I still get that feeling like, oh my God, they're following me. Damn right. But when I get those interactions with its authors, knowing that you guys are also very busy, you guys have a bunch of things going on, plus life in general. I mean, you have also 2 little kids as well, as far from everything else that you're doing. And the idea of having those 2 little ones and then having to balance everything out is, but then to take the time to let that reader know, say, I love it, it's hilarious, but we can't, that's like golden. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll usually try to like respond to people, because I'll do 20-minute writing sessions, and on my breaks, which are usually 10 minutes, I'll try to respond to people. And sometimes it's just like a quick tap of a heart, and sometimes I'm able to like, say a thank you, but I try to at least say something, if someone messages me or something like that. I think it's important.
Yeah. And there's so many different ways. Like I've even come up with like codes with some of my friends. I'm like, listen, if I don't write back, it's because I'm busy. But if I heard it, it means I saw it and I love you. Thank you. Just because sometimes, or what I sometimes do, I leave it as unread because I don't want to forget it. But then
I do that.
Yeah. But then the other person saying, what the fuck, Viv? Why aren't you reading my stuff? And I'm like, damn it. So it's like double-edged sword. So that's why I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this and that. Yeah. But even with me, I mean,
I'll do that. Like, no, sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, even with me, you like, I've sent you quick, like, you've got email, and I'm like, oh, she had it. Okay, she saw it. Good, done.
Yeah, it can be crazy sometimes. Like, I'll get a long message from a reader sometimes, and I'll read it and then I'll mark it as unread so that I can like go back and remind myself to answer, because I don't have the time at that moment. Because I could be in the midst of doing whatever. But yeah, unread is probably one of my favorite things.
Yeah. And unfortunately, some of the other platforms don't allow that, but when I've been able to use it, I do. Yeah. Same thing with my email. Sometimes I'll start them and things like that.
Yeah.
Writing in rom-coms and contemporary romance, that's the genre. But a lot of people now seem to be more about the tropes, whether that's friends to lovers, enemies to lovers, office romance, billionaires up the wazoo. What's your favorite type of trope to write, and why?
I would probably have to say enemies to lovers. I love a good just nagging each other. I think it's so much fun. And I like that explosive moment when they finally, like, they've been at each other's throats and then they finally give in to this attraction that they have. Mm-hmm. I think there's so much that you can work with it. I write enemies to lovers probably far too much than I should, but gosh, just one of my absolute favorites. I enjoy it so much. And sports romance, just because sports is, big in my life. But if I write too much sports in a row, I get real sick of it. So like readers will be like I just started this hockey, like I don't really call them series because you could read them as standalones, but if we want to call it a series, just to call it that. I started one and I released one in September of last year. And then I released the most recent one in April. And there's 5 guys like within the story, the 2 stories. And so I've knocked off 2. And people are like, do we get the 3rd one like next month? And I'm like, oh my God, haven't even written it. I need to like mentally prepare myself. It's just sometimes like sports gets monotonous because it's the same
Yeah.
It's the same job, you know? And
Mhm.
so it's like, this is what there's restrictions as to what you can do unless you put them during the off season. But sometimes the off season can be, you know, boring because then it's not really sports romance, is it? You know, I mean, I guess it is because the guy plays the sport,
Mhm.
but it's just kind of and I schedule really bothers me. There's things that when I'm writing that I don't care for, and it's a schedule, like having to know what day it is that I'm writing in, because you know, heaven forbid, the guy has an off day or he has a game or something, or an animal like a dog or a cat. You know,
Mhm.
cats are a little bit easier, but dogs, it's like, oh my God, you can't forget to let the dog out. And children is, it's very rare, very, very rare that I write a child in a book, just because like taking care of my own is hard enough, but like to have to fictionally take care of a child as well.
Yeah.
It's too hard. And like my author friends are like, Megan, you're missing out on a great trope of single dad romance. And I'm like, it's okay, I'm fine. Thank you. Just like it's too tiresome. Like who's
Mhm.
taking care of the kid while they're doing it on the kitchen island? Like who has the kid? You know, it's just
Mhm.
too much to work out. Or if like there's no spontaneity, you know, especially if the kid's young, it's like
Yeah.
you have to either do it while they're at school or they can't just do it whenever they want to. It's too hard.
But I mean, my God, when you mentioned the dog and like when does he go out? It's amazing how many books I've read that doesn't even come up. But you're right. I
Yes.
as a dog owner, I'm like, hey, when did you feed him? You were at her house the entire time.
I know, right? I wrote a dog, and it's like I said, it's very rare. But the character that I wrote was loved animals, and it's the book is the change up, and they're best friends, and like she gets a new job and he's like, you can stay with me until they become roommates. And then she like her job is like taking care of shelter dogs. So then she brings home a shelter dog and he starts to fall in love with the shelter dog. But I was like, you know, every time they went to bed, I was like, and they take the dog out. Like, because I feel like if you don't say it, readers wonder, like, is this dog abuse?
Is it still alive? Did you feed him? Yeah. Or where is he sleeping? Is he sleeping outside in the living room or do you have him in the bed with you? You know?
Is he
Yeah.
watching them while they do it? Like, God.
It's something that does come up in conversations with
Mhm.
dog owners. I'm like, I don't like it when they stare at me. And I'm like, okay.
It's too many complications. No dogs, no kids.
Kids. Mhm. But also why you're a palate cleanser, because there's always that
Right.
trope of, like you were saying, there's the single dad or the single mom. And then there's some of this other stuff like that they're the dog lovers or the grooms, or there's someone babysitting, whatever, with the kids, the nanny. So the idea that you don't do that is like, okay, I don't want to read about kids or dogs. Boom, Megan book. So it works out. It totally works out.
I'll put that under my palate cleanser mint. Does not write dogs or kids. You're welcome.
Well, yeah, that too. But at the same time, I think also sometimes as a reader, we try to read as an escape. And if you're a parent, the last thing you want to do is have a child in the book as well. You know what I mean? To worry about. Because I think we end up worrying about someone else's kids all the time.
You're like, why am I worrying about this fictional kid?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we do have the fictional boyfriend, so it's very plausible.
It's true. That's tough enough because they make stupid decisions. So, you know,
yeah, the good old days of throwing the book across the room and having it be a paperback and not get damaged are gone now with devices. I'm like, I'm not throwing my phone across the room because he made a stupid decision.
Just throw it into the couch.
That's true. That is true. Good idea. Thank you. That's a good one.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's they're fun. Guys are the hero sometimes. What you guys write, I'm like, dude, really? Wow. Okay. But yeah.
Listen, I will tell you right now that I will write characters based off of people I know. And some people are like, there's no one like this. And I'm like, I promise you, there's a human being exactly like this character. Like,
oh my goodness.
I try to be as relatable as possible. Just because I think it's more funny. That's like part of the comedic part, because when you read someone and you can relate to knowing someone like that, you're like, oh gosh, nailed it. Like that's so like a person I know. So I try to be as relatable as possible.
Yeah. No, we like finding those little quirks in there. And because a lot of times we're like, oh, there's not a man out there like that, but to have that character that, is eating pizza as even and doesn't notice you because you're the best friend. I'm like, yeah, I've been there, done that. He's my husband now, but yeah, there was like that first. Mm-hmm. I mean, I went from getting all glammed up to go into that because there was an office romance. This goes under multiple tropes. It was an office romance. I was a front desk receptionist. He was an academic advisor. So teacher student kind of a thing. And I was like, who you be, and everything. And I started getting all glammed up and everything, did not notice a damn thing. And it got to the point where we're like just chilling. I'm like in sweatpants and my hair in a bun. And that's when he decides to like, hey, do you want to come over and check out my CD collection? I was like, okay, I guess this works. So having that relatability is really good. I was saying, oh yeah, I know someone like that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite type of scene to write? I know that you mentioned about, the happily ever after being a favorite part, but is there a particular type of scene, whether it's a fighting one or when the first time that they get intimate, do you have a type of favorite scene?
It depends on the mood. Honestly, it depends on how I'm feeling in the moment. Sometimes I absolutely love writing sex scenes, and then you'll see that I write like 5 in a row and you're like, whoa, what's Meghan doing? What's going on? I would say probably almost every single book. I love the fight. I love the breakup, and sometimes I'll really just draw it out and take my time and relish in the moment. And then sometimes it's comedic scenes, it just depends. I get nervous with comedy sometimes because of the fact that comedy can be so subjective and some people might not find it funny and other people might think it's freaking hilarious. And so those scenes are the ones that I take my extra time editing to really draw it out, to make sure that if I read it 4 times in a row, I'm laughing every single time. So those ones are probably the hardest. I would say they're the hardest. Just, there's just I'm so particular about it. But the fight scene, you can throw jabs and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Probably that. Probably the fight for sure.
I do love it when there's good banter and the fight and they say something and you're like, how dare you, those moments. And because in real life,
gassed.
Yeah. In real life, I come up with the really good comeback after the argument.
Oh yeah, I'm that person too. I am definitely that person too. Stephanie and I, what did we watch? I don't know. God, we watched something the other day. It's going to come to me later, but we were watching something and someone had, it was This Is Us. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do any spoilers for whoever hasn't watched, like who isn't up to date, but there's this one fight scene and the shade that is thrown and the insult. Oh, I clapped at one point because I was like, that is harsh, but I liked it.
Yeah. Sometimes
I think there's something wrong with me.
No. Well, I think it's that moment of the release, of letting it out, what you've been thinking, what you've been feeling, or how you've been feeling. And sometimes we're not able to do that based, fill in the blanks, whether it's you don't think you can, or that they'll leave. But when you break, and it's harsh sometimes, but sometimes it needs to be said. And calling people out on their bad behavior is important because it holds them accountable. It's not a bully move. It's holding them accountable for their, what they've done or said. And also, as long as it's not directed at you, you can clap all you want.
Right. It was very, I was like, that is harsh, but way to not hold back. Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to let it out. You might as well get it over with and get it done versus having to then try to get the relationship back to where it was or try to fix it. And then, by the way, that one thing I didn't mention is going to loom over us for a while, So it's,
Exactly.
Much better. Mm-hmm. You have been writing for a while. What made you decide to go in to have your titles be in audio?
Honestly, I didn't really think much of it. And then I was in an author group and they're like, oh, audio is doing great. And I was like, what? Is this something I'm not doing? And I started doing audio a little bit with my agent, and I kind of went back and forth. And I noticed I wasn't reaching as many readers as I wanted to. And so I actually spoke with Lauren Blakely, and she's the one who really got me serious about it. And she's been like a godsend, but she really helped me and taught me the ways. Oh, geez, sorry. I don't know if you heard that.
It's fine.
Like banged my elbow.
Oh.
So loud. But she's the one who kind of like taught me the ways, and we kind of grew serious from there and grown their listenership so much in the past year. And it's really exciting because it's a different way for people to experience my book. And you can either choose ebook or paperback now or audio. You could do all three. And I like that it kind of brings the book to life, especially if this last one that I did, those Three Little Words, which released in April. And we had Kelsey Navarro and Teddy Hamilton do a duet narration. And it was my first duet. And because I wasn't paying attention to audio as much. And then I listened to a sample at one point. And frankly, I know I should probably listen to my audio, but it makes me uncomfortable because I wrote it.
Yeah.
And I some authors can listen to their stuff and be totally great. Like, I feel like if my book ever becomes a movie, I'll be the person in the back with their hand over their eyes, just being like, oh my God. Just be, it's like, I don't know. I wrote it and I feel weird. And so I was listening to it and I can't remember who was narrating, but the girls started talking like a guy. And I was like, what is this? And then I asked about it, and I realized that dual and duet are different. And I was like, what on earth? So then I was like, well, I need to do duet because that's obviously better. And so many readers have messaged me and they're like, Megan, please don't ever go back. Please always do duet. I was like, okay, noted. And granted, I can't control what my publisher does. So, whatever they do with narration is on them. But when it comes to my indie stuff, it will be duet.
Yeah, it's a bit more expensive because there's more time spent across and editing and stuff like that. But when you get it good, you get it good. And the listeners are loving duet. And I think it leans very well towards your type of writing because it is, a romantic comedy, and there is some of that banter and stuff like that. When you have two people trying to interrupt each other, it's a little hard to do when you're talking by yourself, even if it's in different acts, even if it's different tones or anything. But to have that, the heroine and the hero literally bantering at each other and almost cutting each other off, and it's just that's watching a movie. You're like, that's even better. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. I think it's more of an experience, honestly. Yeah. And if I can give my readers the best experience possible, then that's what I'm going to do. So once I figured that out, and let me tell you, when I say I was completely just uneducated about audio for the longest time, it's true. I really was. And, bad on me for not stepping up when I probably should have, but I've also had a lot of things going on. And so learning from Lauren, I've just learned so much, and I'm so appreciative of her taking her time to talk to me and help me understand the importance. And now it's like, I get it, readers need that kind of experience. And I've heard the audio and the duet, and I'm like, oh my God, I can see why people love this so much. It's a completely different demographic. When I've spoken to authors that have not done audio and have really good sales, their main concern is that they're going to lose readership. And I'm like, no, people will still buy the book that are readers, and those that are listeners are not going to come into your camp and are going to want to, because you now have this stuff available. There's been so many times where I've been wanting to and dying to read a book, but life is busy, life is crazy. So I'm like, oh, I just got the audio. Oh, fuck me. It's not an audio. And I'm like, dang. And then I don't read the book because, stuff is happening. It's definitely a different demographic. And it's one that I always tell authors that it's important, and even the marketing of it and sharing it, the information with your readers, because they have friends that are listeners that are not readers, and then they can recommend your book and go from there. So
yeah, exactly.
yeah, those 3 little words, when it's duet, it's really awesome. And you've had, I mean, you got like 50 books according to Audible out here in audio. So you're doing good. You're doing really good.
Some of them are through other publishers that like I sold the rights to. Some of them are through me. It just depends on what I was feeling.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of work.
So it is a lot of work. And it took me a very long time to release audio simultaneously. And that was the biggest thing, and so I really had to work hard because I have to turn it in like 8 weeks prior to release. And so, but then like I take about 6 weeks of edits with my editors and stuff like that. So I'm writing books like far in advance, to make sure I hit these deadlines. And it took me a while to get to the point where, I'm writing, because I released 5 indie books a year, and then 2 books with Montlake, my publisher. So it took me a while to kind of maneuver my schedule around so that I could get it to the point where I was doing simultaneous releases.
Yeah. And that's just the writing of the story and getting it to the hands of the producers or the publishers for the audio. But even then, the whole booking of the cast, of the narrators, they get full up to, months in advance. And some of these individuals are, I think they're almost booked up till like March of next year already. And I'm like, damn. So you gotta have to schedule all that stuff. Yeah.
Sometimes you get lucky and someone's like, oh, an author dropped me. I have space.
Yeah.
But we're booked through the end of the year at this point. And so we should probably start thinking about January. But yeah, we're booked through the end of the year.
Do you like using the same narrators over and over again because the fans like them? Or do you also like to spice things up and throw in a new one here and there?
It depends on the character, honestly. It depends on, is the character like more quirky? I would probably like lean more towards like Kelsey Navarro in that instance, whereas the guy like super serious and it'd probably be more of like a Jason Clark type character. And it also depends on if there's an accent involved, or if who's available.
Yeah.
So hardest thing for me when scheduling is that I like to fly by the seat of my pants on what I'm writing. I just know when I'm releasing a book, and like audio's like, what's the book called? And I'm like, I don't know, because I don't know what I'm writing yet. And so I have to like be very careful about who I book and pay attention to who I book and what I need to write to fit that like narrator. So, but I'm excited about who we have coming up for the rest of the year.
Good. Yeah, we're always pins and needles on like when the next book's coming out. Like we know something's coming because it's been announced, it's shared. And then we sometimes get the book covers first, or we get the blurb or an idea of what's coming on or a trope or whatever. And the rest of us are like, but who's narrating it? And some of you guys are as authors are mean little suckers, and they make us wait. Or they teach.
I was very mean about my April release, not with who was narrating, but who the book was about. And I didn't release it until the cover reveal. And I kept having readers try to guess who like the second hockey book was going to be about. And I said like the person got his teammate's sister pregnant. And I was like, who is it? Who is it? And they had 4 people to choose from. And I never said who it was. And they just kept guessing. And it was a lot of fun on my end because I like torture. Yeah. So, I thought that's exciting, but maybe I should do the whole surprise narrator thing now. You got me thinking.
It's fun because we all have our favorites, but at the same time, many of us also like again, palate cleansing. and then get a new narrator. And also just to discover someone new too is always great. I know that I have fun casting because an author will come to me and say, I want Sebastian York. And I'm like,
right.
Let me check. I already know the answer is he's booked to like 2 years out, for an example. I'm probably exaggerating, but I check. He's not available. So now the game becomes, what are the qualities of Sebastian York that you wanted? And how can I find it in someone else? And it's like fun. It's so much fun.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you've had him as one of your narrators. You've had a bunch of them that are different and some that come back. And it's, we have our fan favorites. And then we're also like, ooh, who is she going to bring on next? Because then we get excited about how that character is going to be portrayed, So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also interesting, like who you pair people with. And I remember, I won't say who, but I had a higher top name for a narrator for a guy, and he has like a certain rate. And the girl came back and said, would you match his rate? And I said 100%, because I really think that, the male voice is important, but I also think that the female voice is important, especially in my books, because the female usually carries a lot of the comedic parts. So I think that's totally important. And, I think sometimes we can get caught up on, what male narrator we have going on. Gosh, I honestly think that sometimes the female narrators are the ones carrying some of my books, not all of them, obviously, at least carrying some of the comedic like timing and stuff like that. And, it's just as important. And as the guy, like breathing heavily and making like sexy sounds. And saying, I appreciate it. I know they do such a good job, and I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. I will say that the girls unfortunately get placed to the side many times in this community, because most of the, not that it's an excuse or anything or a reason, I don't agree with it, but it happens to be that the majority of the listeners are, cis straight women, and they gravitate more to the men. But I do know for a fact that the women do a lot more of the work behind the scenes in the curtain many times. Whether it's via the emails, where it's, getting some of the schedules together. They are also some of the producers of the books, especially what's for the indie authors. And even some of the marketing, when it comes right down to it, the girls are rocking it a lot better than some of the guys. But everybody's like, oh my God, the guy. And I'm like, it's co-narrated, fucker.
I haven't had a bad experience, thankfully, with like any of the narrators. I think they've all been amazing. But when I had that question asked to me, I was like, 100%. Why wouldn't I pay you the same? So
I'm glad that they asked.
I'm glad that they asked too. I think it's important to kind of shoot your shot. You know what I mean? So but they did they did a good job together, and I do understand the appeal for the male voice, because when I'm writing a book, I will write things in there knowing that it's going to be an audio, and I want that male narrator to like send chills up a reader or listener's spine. I think that's so important, because that connection, women put themselves in that place sometimes, as almost the female character in the book. So, they are very much important when it comes to telling the story. I think, especially if it's something like maybe like a mafia or like a dark romance, but since I write romantic comedies, it's usually the girl who's like bumbling about, and the guy's just sitting there being like, what on earth is this? And the girl is like, just like almost like a me and Steph kind of like relationship. So
he's turning that annoying girl.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's a great community. And I mean, that conversation about the pay and having it be equal has come up a lot. And I'm also a huge proponent of, if I ask you what your rate is and that's what you tell me, that's what I'm going to pay you. And then if he happens to be a higher rate, I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to pay him. That's what he told me. So at the same time, I know some of the responsibility falls on us to match it, but at the same time, I'm going, girl, you gotta speak up for yourself. And ask for that higher rate, it's but to be matched and things like that. So I'm glad that people are starting to do that as well.
Yeah, I think so too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also love that you write. That was going to be one of my questions, but you answered it about if your writing style now has changed a bit now that you're doing audio for it. And you mentioned that you purposely write some stuff knowing that, it's going to be an audio. Have you removed most of your tags too, right?
Most of my tags?
Yeah. The she said, like he said. Yeah.
It depends. It depends on how quick the banter is, how it honestly depends on the scene. Because sometimes when I'm editing it, I'll get lost. And so like I do try to gear towards audio so that has like a smoother sound to it. But I also need to think about the, the reader. And you can get confused quite quickly, especially with how fast my characters will go back and forth. So I try to do like a happy medium between the two. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, Megan, you don't need that. It might be like a little too garbly for audio. So it depends. I try to cater toward both.
Yeah. And that's important. And I think because you don't ever want anybody to be like, wait, what just happened? Who said what? And because it ruins the flow of the story and it kind of takes the reader out of it. But I also realize that when it comes down to like a good example, like text messaging in audio, let's start with the book. It tells you who's the one typing because you have no way of knowing otherwise.
Yeah.
Because it's just text on a paper. This is words.
Yeah.
But when it goes to audio, you don't have to say Rebecca, blah, 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 blah. Anthony, blah, 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 blah. Rebecca. And I'm like, I got it.
Right.
So there's those little tweaks that you can do that I think authors are starting to learn more as they spend more time in audiobook world, that they're like, okay, we can do that and change it a little bit for the audio and not lose and get anybody lost in reading the books.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things that we learn as we go. Hey, I'm learning all the time, even with this stuff with the podcast. I've been doing it for 8 years. And I'm like, oh, that's what that button is. Damn. A couple of getting to know you kind of questions. When you're not working, what do you do for fun?
I'm usually hanging out with my family. I've started baking, trying new. I've always been a baker, but trying things that I never would try before. Like I made bagels, which turned out really super flat, and I made this one like bread thing and with Nutella, and that came out really good. But it's usually, if I'm doing anything, it's honestly hanging out with my family.
It's important, And I love that you're trying new recipes. I think sometimes, I know I do tend to stick to the same things I know. And then I'm like, I'm going to be adventurous and I'm going to do a baklava. And then it comes out great. But then I also remember the amount of work it went into. So I'm not going to do it all the time. It's okay.
Exactly.
Buy it made. Yeah. What's your favorite holiday and why?
Favorite holiday? I would probably say that like Arbor Day. No. I do love a planted tree. No, I'd probably say Christmas just because I have so many good memories around it. And like we have young kids right now, so it just makes it a little bit more magical.
Yeah, they do that, don't they? Oh, It's when they get older, then you're like, stop it.
Yeah.
Get down here, get out of your room. Time to open presents. Exactly. And like before you had to tell them to stay in the room. And now it's like, get out of here.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite snacks?
Okay. Most recently, Dot's Pretzels. I had a reader send me like a lovely care package from North Dakota. And there was Dot's Pretzels in there, and I've never heard of them before. And I was like, what's this? And I opened the bag and I took a bite and I was like, oh my God, like unicorns started dancing around and music played. And it was the most euphoric experience of my life. And I made it known. And the last sighting was a reader brought me 3 2-pound bags of Dots. And I was like, oh my God. So I love those. And I also am a sucker for gummy worms, sour gummy worms. Oof. I love a good sour. So good.
Yeah. Some people are more about the sweets. Others are about the sour. And it's amazing how the different textures even affect the flavor.
Yeah.
When it comes down to some of the candy. But yeah. So now we know what to have handy if we're hanging out with you.
If you want to lure me in, just like wiggle a gummy worm at me and I'll come running by.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned music, and dancing unicorns when it came down to the snacks, but sometimes that song comes up, whether it's at a grocery store or when you're at Target, or in the car. What song do you have to sing along with when it comes on?
So Stephanie is infatuated with Whitney Houston. Like, she thinks that she is the best thing that's ever happened. And I had like a Whitney Houston song, like when I was, young or whatever, or it's not song, but CD when I was younger. But I wasn't like a huge fan. Like, I liked her music. But being with Steph, it's like every freaking day our son's like, Alexa, play Whitney Houston. So it's gotten to the point now where it's like ingrained in my head. And the rule with Stephanie is that Whitney is allowed to sing, no one else. Oh. And
I know where this is going.
I just can't help myself when songs come on, when her songs come on, and I know them so much now that I will start singing along horribly, and I can't stop it. It is, and even Steph told me, don't, like, she like yells at me, don't do it. And it just happens. Like, I can't stop. And, yeah, that's probably it. She'll love and hate that answer.
Yeah. Yes, because you thought of her, but seriously, leave her Whitney alone, right?
I know. She'll probably be like, haha, I got you. I've played Whitney enough.
Mm-hmm. And you turn around and go, like, aha. Exactly. Yeah. I'm not singing it. Yeah. So, yeah. You guys are so cute and adorable. I love it. You work with words all the time. You're welcome. You work with words all day long. And that's obviously part of our, how we communicate and things like that. What's your favorite word? Not a curse word, but a favorite word.
My favorite word to write apparently is little, according to my editor. And she said it so many times now that I'm self-conscious about saying little. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Let's do something sentimental. My favorite word is mommy.
Aww.
So the kids call me. Steph is mama. I'm mommy. So there you have it.
Oh, yeah, that's a very nice word. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I will say that it's one of the things I remember Cheris calling my mom mommy. And then as I got older, it became mother when I was mad.
I do the mother too.
Yeah. Yes, mother. It's mom or mom. I'm like, no, mother.
No,
I'm mad.
I'll do that all the time. I'll do that to my mom all the time. And she just rolls her eyes.
Yeah. She knows. Well, at this point, she's like, oh, Megan, seriously.
Right.
Well, I've had a great time talking to you. But before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on and what's coming up next for you that you can't share?
So what's coming up next is June 7th. I have a release. It's going to be, A Not So Meet Cute came out, and Huxley has two brothers, JP and Breaker. So June 7th book is going to be JP's book, and it's called So Not Meant to Be. And then I have a book coming out in August called Royally Not Ready. It'll probably be my one and only royal book, but I love it so much because the girl, it's like a grown-up Princess Diaries sort of. Ooh. And the guy that she falls for is the guy who's trying to like train her. But he is a dom, and it's just super sexy within this like royal romance type setting. And so I think it's unique and different, and hopefully people like it. So those are my two things coming up. Since this is going to be released in June, I can talk about something that has been super top secret. But moving forward from here on out, I will have illustrated collections for each of my new releases, meaning that when you go to choose how you want to listen to my book, you can choose ebook, you can choose audio, you can choose paperback, or you can choose hardback, which will have over 30 illustrations in the book that portray the characters and different scenes, fun scenes. So you can kind of have a whole new experience when reading a romance.
That is so
it's kind of like
fucking
the grown-up illustrated book. And oh boy, some of these sex scenes, like I never show anything private because I was talking to my illustrator. I was like, let's not do porn here. But he covers everything up to the point where it's like almost sexier.
Yeah.
So, I can't wait for people. My first one comes out May 23rd, a Not So Meet Cute. And then the second one will come out with release on June 7th of So Not Meant to Be. And then we're working on my teacher series, getting that one illustrated. And we're going to have a new experience readers, and I can't wait. And you're the first person I'm telling.
Yeah. Thank you. But that is so awesome. I know that, we're always imagining what the characters look like or what that scene may have been like to be if you were like a fly in the wall. And that's awesome. And I love that it's on the on the hardcover too. It's it's a different experience,
Yeah. The reason for that is because you can really only have one paperback. And so I wanted people to have the choice. And so I went into hardback for the illustrated. So I can't wait. It's so glorious.
Are you doing library binding or are you doing the cover flats for your hardcovers?
Not the library binding.
Okay. Got it. Those are always fun too, but I know they're a bit more expensive. Those are definitely good for like special edition box sets and stuff like that, for releases. But no, that is awesome. I cannot wait. I like hardcovers too, but that's an extra like for getting it,
Exactly.
And
do you want to hear do you want to hear one of the best parts?
Yeah. No, go ahead.
We've taken the actual covers. So like the cover of a Not So Meet Cute, and my illustrator illustrated it. So it looks like the same cover. The colors are a little bit different, but it looks like the same cover, but like the guy who's my cover model, he's illustrated on the front, just like the character in the book. And it's so perfect. So I can't wait for people to see it.
I love that you're so excited about it too. It's contagious and infectious. It's awesome.
I'm legit frothing at the mouth. So I cannot wait for people to grab these.
I cannot wait to, that's going to be a fun conversation with the readers too, and the listeners, because I know that like even the listeners, people automatically think that they only get the audiobook, but they will also buy the physical copy of the book because they want to have something, they loved it that much. Like I'm one of those too. But when there's special editions like this, that you get a little extra something. Oh yeah, baby. That's going to be fun, like hotcakes.
And like with the Not So Meet Cute, there's over 30 illustrations, but I think with So Not Meant to Be, I think there's probably going to be closer to 40 just because the chapters are long. And there's multiple scenes in a chapter and good scenes that I was like, oh, this deserves an illustration. And so, and I actually, when I got the final files for a Not So Meet Cute, I was going through them and I was like, oh, there's not enough illustration. So I added 6 more. So I was like, I just want it to be such a great reading experience and for readers to be excited about this and to look at the pictures and be like, oh my gosh, like this is so amazing. And especially in a Not So Meet Cute, one of my favorite scenes is they're at this baby like class or whatever. And the fake baby that they have is missing an eye and it's kind of creepy and it throws up on the character. And
oh God.
I had the illustrator illustrate that and it made me snort so hard because he did such a good job. The baby it's like what nightmares are made of. And like it's just puking all over her. It's so perfect. So I can't wait.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's awesome. That is so awesome. I just realized that I did not ask you because I guess you threw me off a little bit with your favorite word, what your favorite curse word was.
Oh, it's easily fuck. I mean, I feel like that's everybody's for the most part. My dad would say shit. My dad says shit a lot. So, but yeah, it'd have to be, I use it too much, even for my kids. I'm like, oh, sorry.
Hey, I went through that trying to be the good example. Not that it's a bad example, but just try not to bring in the bad words and, at a younger age. And I ended up getting so stressed out trying to find a different word to express myself when something came up that I needed to use a word for it. I'm like, baloney wasn't cutting it when I was meant to say bullshit, and fudge wasn't cutting it when I'm like, fuck. And and then I realized they're going to hear significantly worse when, with their friends. I'm sure they talk about it. And then one time I saw his text messages and I'm like, fuck this shit. He doesn't curse around us at all. And it's very, he does not use any of those words. But when he's typing that stuff out, I'm like, I don't feel bad. I'm good. So from a younger age, I'm like, I'm going to teach you how to properly use fuck as a verb, a noun, an adjective, and a pronoun. So yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Meghan, for taking part in this year's Audiobook Lovin Series. It's been so much fun catching up with you and getting to know you better. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
It's a full delight. Everyone, thank you for hanging out with us today. And we hope you've enjoyed this chat as well as the series. Make sure to follow Meghan on social media. And if you're not, I will be providing you with all the links so you have no excuse. Over at Audiobook Lovin page, over at Viviana, Enchantress of Books. And until next time, happy listenings.
Thank you for joining us in the Audiobook Lovin Series, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. We hope you have enjoyed this episode, as well as the series. We've included audio samples of our guests' work within the post for you to check out. Please make sure to visit the main page, link within the post, to learn more about the series, the authors, and the narrators. Please consider leaving a review wherever you listen to the series if you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to follow us on our social media platforms and subscribe to the Viviana Enchantress of Books newsletter. Until next time, happy listening. Audiobook Lovin hopes you've enjoyed this program.